Listen, if you're watching this video right now, it means you've reached a point where you understand something most people don't. You understand that loyalty isn't just a nice word people throw around. It's the foundation of every empire, every successful relationship, and every achievement that actually matters in this world. But here's what separates the successful from the struggling: knowing how to identify who's truly loyal and who's just playing the game. Think about every billionaire, every world leader, every person who's built something that lasted. They all had to master one critical skill: the ability to distinguish between genuine loyalty and performance loyalty. The difference between these two can literally make or break your entire future. Warren Buffett once said something that changed how he approached business relationships forever. He realized early in his career that technical skills could be taught, intelligence could be developed, but loyalty, true loyalty, that's something you either have or you don't. And the only way to know for sure is to test it. Now, before we dive into these 5 game-changing tests, understand this. We're not talking about manipulation or playing mind games with people. We're talking about strategic awareness. We're talking about protecting yourself and your future by understanding human nature at its core. The world's most successful people didn't get where they are by hoping everyone around them had good intentions. They got there by developing systems to identify who could be trusted with their dreams, their resources, and their vulnerabilities. Today, you're going to learn those exact systems. Test number 1, the delayed gratification challenge. Let's start with something that reveals more about a person's character than almost anything else: how they handle delayed gratification when it comes to loyalty. This isn't about asking someone to wait for money or rewards. This is about seeing if their loyalty remains consistent when there's no immediate benefit to being loyal. Here's how this works in real life. When you're building something, whether it's a business, a relationship, or any kind of partnership, there are always going to be periods where being loyal to you doesn't offer immediate advantages. In fact, it might even seem disadvantageous in the short term. Mark Cuban discovered this principle early in his entrepreneurial journey. When he was building his first company, he noticed something fascinating. During the tough months when the company wasn't generating much revenue and the future looked uncertain, some team members started looking elsewhere. They began taking meetings with competitors, updating their resumes, and generally preparing their exit strategies. But a few people did something different. They doubled down. They worked harder, stayed later, and actually increased their commitment during the uncertain times. These weren't naive people who didn't understand the risks. These were smart individuals who made a conscious choice to remain loyal even when it wasn't the obviously smart financial move. Cuban later said those were the people who became his core team when the company eventually sold for millions. They weren't just employees at that point. They became partners, advisors, and lifelong allies in his business empire. So how do you apply this test? You create situations where being loyal to you requires some level of delayed gratification. This doesn't mean making people suffer unnecessarily. It means paying attention during natural periods of uncertainty or challenge. When you're going through a difficult time in your business, who stays engaged versus who starts distancing themselves? When you're facing criticism or setbacks, who continues to support you publicly versus who remains suspiciously quiet? When opportunities arise that might conflict with their loyalty to you, what choice do they make? Jeff Bezos used this principle when building Amazon. During the dot-com crash, when everyone was predicting Amazon's failure, he watched carefully to see which team members maintained their belief in the company's vision. Those who stayed committed during the dark periods became the leadership team that guided Amazon to become one of the world's most valuable companies. The key is not to artificially create hardship, but to pay careful attention during naturally occurring challenges. Real loyalty reveals itself not during the good times when being loyal is easy, but during the uncertain times when loyalty requires genuine commitment. Test number 2, the information security assessment. The second test is perhaps the most revealing of all: how someone handles confidential information. This goes far beyond just keeping secrets. This is about understanding whether someone truly sees themselves as part of your inner circle or if they're still operating as an outsider looking for opportunities. Oprah Winfrey built her media empire partly by mastering this principle. Early in her career, she learned to share different levels of information with different people and then observe what happened. Not sensitive information that could hurt anyone, but strategic information about future plans, opportunities, or challenges. She would tell certain people about upcoming projects or business moves, and then pay attention to what came back to her through the grapevine. What she discovered was fascinating. Some people would immediately start positioning themselves to benefit from the information. Others would start sharing it with people they thought could help them. But a select few would guard that information as carefully as if it were their own. Those select few became her most trusted advisors, business partners, and friends. They understood instinctively that being given confidential information was a privilege, not an opportunity. Here's how you apply this in your life. Start by sharing information strategically. Give different people different pieces of non-critical, but somewhat sensitive information about your plans or situations. Then observe what happens. Does the information stay contained, or does it start circulating? Do people use the information to try to get ahead of you or position themselves advantageously? Or do they treat it as something precious that was entrusted to them? Elon Musk has become legendary for his version of this test. People in his companies know that he occasionally shares strategic information to see how it's handled. Those who prove they can be trusted with sensitive information find themselves with increasing levels of access and responsibility. Those who can't, well, they find themselves on the outside looking in. But here's the sophisticated part of this test. It's not just about whether people keep secrets. It's about whether they understand the deeper principle. Truly loyal people don't just keep your information confidential because you asked them to. They keep it confidential because they instinctively understand that your success and their success are connected. The difference is profound. Someone who keeps secrets out of obligation might slip up under pressure or when circumstances change. Someone who keeps secrets because they genuinely see themselves as part of your success story will protect that information even when it costs them personally. Test number 3, the adversity response analysis. The third test reveals loyalty in its purest form. How people respond when you're facing real adversity. This isn't about creating fake problems or manipulating situations. This is about paying very close attention during the natural ups and downs of life and business. Richard Branson learned this lesson in a way that shaped his entire approach to building teams. In the early days of Virgin, the company faced a crisis that threatened to destroy everything he'd built. Legal challenges, financial pressures, and public relations disasters all hit at once. During this period, Branson watched something fascinating happen. Some people who had been enthusiastic supporters suddenly became difficult to reach. They stopped returning calls as quickly, their energy in meetings decreased, and they began subtly distancing themselves from the company. But others did the opposite. They became more engaged, more creative, more willing to work long hours, and take personal risks to help solve the problems. They didn't just maintain their loyalty, they increased it during the crisis. Branson later said this experience taught him more about human nature than anything else in his business career. The people who stepped up during the crisis became the core of his organization for decades to come. They weren't just employees, they became family. The key insight here is that adversity doesn't create character, it reveals it. Loyal people don't become loyal during tough times. They reveal their existing loyalty during tough times. So how do you apply this test? First, you pay attention during natural periods of adversity. When you're dealing with criticism, setbacks, or challenges, who moves toward you versus who moves away? Who offers help versus who offers advice from a safe distance? Steve Jobs experienced this during his famous departure from Apple. Some people who had claimed to be loyal allies quickly distanced themselves when it became clear he was losing the internal power struggle. But a core group remained committed to him personally, even when it wasn't professionally advantageous. When Jobs returned to Apple years later, guess who became his most trusted team? The people who had remained loyal during his exile. They became the leadership team that guided Apple to become the world's most valuable company. But here's the advanced level of this test. Truly loyal people don't just stand by you during adversity. They find ways to actively help, even when helping might cost them something. They use their resources, their relationships, and their reputation to support you during difficult times. The difference between passive loyalty and active loyalty becomes crystal clear during adversity. Passive loyalty means they don't abandon you. Active loyalty means they actively work to help you succeed despite the challenges. Test number 4, the success reaction evaluation. This fourth test is perhaps the most surprising because it reveals a type of disloyalty that many people never see coming. This is about how people react when you succeed, especially when you succeed beyond their expectations or beyond their own level of success. Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, discovered this principle in a painful but educational way. As his company grew from a startup to a major corporation, he noticed something troubling. Some of the people who had been supportive during the early, struggling days began acting differently as the company became more successful. It wasn't that they became openly hostile or disloyal. It was more subtle. They began questioning decisions more aggressively. They started suggesting that the success was lucky or unsustainable. Some began positioning themselves as the real architects of the company's success. What Benioff realized was that some people can handle being loyal when you need their help, but they struggle with being loyal when you no longer need their help in the same way. Their loyalty was partially based on feeling needed and important. When success changed those dynamics, their loyalty shifted as well. The truly loyal people, however, reacted to his success with genuine joy and continued commitment. They celebrated victories as if they were their own victories. They became even more committed to the company's mission as it became clear that mission was actually achievable. Here's how this test works in practice. When you achieve something significant, whether it's a business milestone, a personal achievement, or any kind of success, pay close attention to how people around you respond. Do they celebrate with genuine enthusiasm, or does their congratulations feel forced? Do they ask how they can help you build on the success, or do they start distancing themselves? Do they talk about your success as something they're proud to be associated with, or do they subtly minimize it? Oprah experienced this throughout her career as her success grew beyond what anyone had imagined possible. She watched as some long-term relationships became strained not because she changed, but because her success made some people uncomfortable. The people who remained genuinely loyal didn't just tolerate her success, they were energized by it. They saw her achievements as validation that they had been smart to believe in her early on. They became even more committed to helping her reach the next level. This test is particularly important for anyone building wealth, influence, or recognition because it reveals who's truly in your corner versus who was just along for the ride while it was convenient. Real loyalty means being genuinely happy about your success, even when that success changes the dynamic of your relationship. False loyalty reveals itself through subtle resentment, attempts to diminish your achievements, or efforts to take credit for your success. Test number 5, the Alternative Opportunity Challenge. The fifth and final test is perhaps the most definitive because it directly measures loyalty against self-interest. This test reveals itself when people face opportunities that would require them to choose between their loyalty to you and their personal advancement. Tim Cook experienced this test in a unique way when he was being considered for the CEO position at Apple. During the transition period, he undoubtedly received offers from other major companies who wanted to recruit him. Some of these offers likely included higher compensation, more immediate authority, or less challenging circumstances than taking over from Steve Jobs. But Cook's loyalty wasn't just to Apple as a company. It was to the vision and mission that Jobs had built. When faced with these alternative opportunities, he didn't just stay with Apple out of obligation. He stayed because he genuinely believed in what Apple was building and wanted to be part of that specific story. This is the ultimate test of loyalty because it forces people to choose between their personal short-term interests and their commitment to you and your shared goals. Here's how this test typically reveals itself in real life. People around you will occasionally face opportunities that would require them to step away from their commitment to you. These might be job offers, business partnerships, investment opportunities, or even social opportunities that would require them to distance themselves from you. The key is not whether they consider these opportunities. Smart, ambitious people should always be aware of their options. The key is how they handle the decision-making process and what factors they prioritize. Sheryl Sandberg faced this test multiple times during her tenure at Facebook. As one of the most sought-after executives in Silicon Valley, she regularly received opportunities to lead other major companies or start her own ventures. Each time, she had to weigh her loyalty to Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook's mission against potentially lucrative alternatives. What made her loyalty genuine was that she didn't stay simply because leaving would be difficult or because she was comfortable. She stayed because she believed in what Facebook was building and wanted to be part of that specific story, even when other opportunities might have offered more immediate rewards. The most loyal people don't just avoid taking opportunities that would conflict with their loyalty to you. They actively seek opportunities that align with and strengthen their commitment to your shared success. When someone faces an alternative opportunity, pay attention to how they process the decision. Do they consider how their choice would affect you and your shared goals? Do they communicate openly about the opportunity and seek your input? Do they look for ways to turn down conflicting opportunities while finding ways to accept opportunities that benefit everyone? Warren Buffett has said that some of his most valuable business relationships were forged when people turned down lucrative opportunities specifically because those opportunities would have conflicted with their commitment to Berkshire Hathaway. These weren't people who lacked options. They were people who chose loyalty over convenience. How modern powerful people apply these principles. Now that you understand these 5 tests, let's talk about how today's most successful people actually apply these principles in their daily lives and business operations. Jeff Bezos built Amazon partly by institutionalizing these loyalty tests into his hiring and promotion processes. Amazon's famous leadership principles aren't just corporate buzzwords. They're actually sophisticated loyalty tests disguised as performance metrics. When Amazon promotes people to senior positions, they don't just look at technical skills or past performance. They look at how these individuals have handled confidential information, how they've responded during company crises, how they've reacted to Amazon's massive growth, and how they've handled competing opportunities. Bezos learned early that technical skills could be taught and performance could be improved, but loyalty to the company's long-term vision was something that had to be identified and cultivated. The people who passed these loyalty tests became the leaders who guided Amazon through multiple business transformations. Elon Musk takes this even further. At both Tesla and SpaceX, he's created what insiders call loyalty stress tests. These aren't formal programs. They're situations that naturally arise where people's true commitment to the company's mission gets revealed. During Tesla's production challenges, Musk paid attention to which executives worked around the clock to solve problems versus which ones focused on protecting their own reputations. During SpaceX's early failures, he watched who doubled down on the Mars mission versus who started suggesting more conservative goals. The people who passed these stress tests became his inner circle. They're not just employees. They're partners in his vision of changing the world through sustainable energy and space exploration. Mark Cuban applies these principles in his investment decisions on Shark Tank and beyond. When entrepreneurs pitch him, he's not just evaluating their business model or market opportunity. He's trying to assess their loyalty to their own vision and their potential loyalty to him as an investor and partner. Cuban has said he'd rather invest in someone with moderate skills but deep loyalty to their mission than someone with exceptional skills but questionable commitment. He's learned that when challenges arise, and they always do, loyalty determines who fights through the difficulties and who looks for exit strategies. Oprah Winfrey built her media empire by applying these loyalty principles to every level of her organization. From her production staff to her on-air personalities to her business partners, she consistently identified and promoted people who demonstrated genuine loyalty to her mission of empowering and inspiring people. But here's what made Oprah's approach sophisticated. She didn't just test for loyalty to her personally. She tested for loyalty to the broader mission and values her brand represented. This created an organization where people remained committed even as the business evolved and changed over decades. The result is that many of Oprah's key team members have been with her for decades, creating a level of trust and efficiency that gave her massive competitive advantages in the fast-changing media landscape. So how do you actually apply these principles in your own life without becoming paranoid or manipulative? The key is to understand that these aren't tricks or games you play with people. These are observation tools that help you make better decisions about who to trust with important responsibilities and opportunities. Start by paying attention during naturally occurring situations where these dynamics reveal themselves. You don't need to create tests. Life creates them for you constantly. The key is developing the awareness to recognize what you're seeing when these situations arise. When you're going through a challenging period in your business or personal life, notice who moves toward you versus who creates distance. When you achieve something significant, Pay attention to who celebrates with genuine enthusiasm versus who seems uncomfortable with your success. When you share strategic information, observe how it's handled. When people around you face competing opportunities, watch how they make decisions and what factors they prioritize. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everyone around you. The goal is to become more strategic about who you choose to trust with the most important aspects of your life and business. Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, built one of the world's most successful hedge funds partly by institutionalizing these principles into his company culture. Bridgewater's famous radical transparency culture is actually a sophisticated system for continuously testing and developing loyalty among team members. By creating an environment where people's true motivations and commitments get revealed through daily interactions, Dalio built an organization where loyalty to the firm's principles and mission became the foundation of everything else. This approach allowed Bridgewater to maintain exceptional performance over decades, even as individual team members came and went. The culture itself became a loyalty test that attracted people genuinely committed to the firm's approach and filtered out those who weren't. Richard Branson applies these principles differently, but just as effectively. Virgin's culture of empowerment and risk-taking creates natural situations where people's loyalty gets tested and proven. By giving people significant authority and responsibility, Branson quickly identifies who uses that freedom to advance the company's mission versus who uses it primarily for personal gain. The people who consistently choose the company's interests when those interests conflict with their immediate personal interests become Branson's most trusted leaders across Virgin's various businesses. Let's talk about how understanding and applying these principles has literally transformed the lives and careers of successful people in ways that might surprise you. When Sarah Blakely was building Spanx from her apartment, she had very limited resources and needed to be extremely strategic about who she trusted with her time, ideas, and opportunities. She began unconsciously applying these loyalty tests to everyone she encountered in the business world. During the early days when Spanx was just an idea that most people thought would never work, Blakely paid attention to who took her seriously versus who dismissed her. When she started getting media attention, but before the business was obviously successful, she watched who remained supportive versus who became skeptical. The people who passed these natural tests became her core team as Spanx grew into a billion-dollar company. More importantly, they became her trusted advisors and friends who helped her navigate challenges that she never could have anticipated. Blakely later said that learning to identify loyalty early saved her from countless bad partnerships, terrible hires, and strategic mistakes that could have destroyed her company before it reached its potential. Reed Hastings experienced a similar transformation when building Netflix. During the company's transition from DVD by mail to streaming, Hastings faced enormous internal and external pressure. Many industry experts predicted the strategy would fail, and some of his own team members questioned the decision. Hastings paid careful attention to who remained committed to the streaming vision during this uncertain period versus who started hedging their bets or pushing for more conservative approaches. The people who demonstrated genuine loyalty to the long-term vision became the leadership team that guided Netflix to become one of the world's most valuable media companies. But here's the key insight from Hastings' experience. The people who demonstrated loyalty during the transition weren't just following orders or hoping for the best. They were people who genuinely understood and believed in the strategic vision, even when that vision required short-term sacrifices and risks. This distinction between compliance-based loyalty and vision-based loyalty became a cornerstone of how Netflix continued to innovate and adapt in the rapidly changing entertainment industry. Michael Jordan applied these principles throughout his basketball career in ways that extended far beyond the court. During his playing days with the Chicago Bulls, Jordan paid attention to which teammates were committed to winning championships versus which ones were primarily focused on individual statistics or personal recognition. The players who demonstrated genuine loyalty to the team's championship goals became Jordan's inner circle and remained his closest friends long after their playing careers ended. But more importantly, this approach helped Jordan identify which teammates he could trust in crucial game situations and which ones might prioritize personal performance over team success. After retiring from basketball, Jordan applied these same principles to his business ventures. when building the Jordan brand with Nike and later when becoming an owner of the Charlotte Hornets. He used his understanding of loyalty to identify business partners and team members who would remain committed during challenging periods. The result has been a business empire that has continued to grow and evolve decades after Jordan stopped playing basketball, largely because it's built on relationships with people whose loyalty has been tested and proven over time. In today's interconnected world, these loyalty principles have become even more important and more complex to apply. Social media, remote work, and global business relationships have created new ways that loyalty gets tested and revealed. Consider how someone like Gary Vaynerchuk built VaynerMedia into a hundreds of millions-dollar agency. Vaynerchuk didn't just hire people based on their marketing skills or client experience. He hired people based on their demonstrated loyalty to the agency's mission of providing exceptional value to clients, even when doing so required extra effort or personal sacrifice. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when many agencies were laying off staff and reducing services to protect their profit margins, VaynerMedia's leadership team chose to maintain their full team and actually increase their service levels to help clients navigate the crisis. This decision wasn't just about being nice to employees or clients. It was about staying loyal to the company's foundational principles, even when doing so was financially challenging in the short term. The result was that VaynerMedia emerged from the pandemic with stronger client relationships, a more committed team, and a reputation that attracted the industry's best talent. The key insight here is that loyalty principles work both ways. By demonstrating loyalty to his team and clients during a crisis, Vaynerchuk strengthened the loyalty they felt toward him and the company. Brian Chesky applied similar principles while building Airbnb, but in his case, the loyalty tests often involved how people responded to the company's rapid growth and constant evolution. During Airbnb's expansion into new markets and new business models, Chesky paid attention to which team members remained committed to the company's core mission of helping people belong anywhere. Some employees became uncomfortable with the pace of change and began pushing for more stability and predictable roles. Others embraced the evolution and found ways to contribute to new initiatives, even when doing so meant stepping outside their comfort zones. The people who demonstrated loyalty to Airbnb's mission of continuous innovation and global expansion became the leaders who guided the company through its IPO and beyond. They weren't just adapting to change. They were actively driving change because they believed in where the company was heading. Understanding why these tests work requires understanding some fundamental aspects of human psychology that most people never consciously consider. Loyalty isn't just an emotion or a choice. It's a reflection of someone's core values and how they see themselves in relation to others. When someone demonstrates genuine loyalty during challenging times, they're revealing that they see their success as connected to your success. This isn't just about being supportive or helpful. This is about having a fundamental belief that they win when you win and that your failure would represent their failure as well. This psychological connection is what separates true loyalty from transactional relationships. In transactional relationships, people support you as long as doing so provides them with clear benefits. In loyal relationships, people support you because they've internalized your success as part of their own identity and purpose. Daniel Kahneman's research on decision-making under uncertainty helps explain why loyalty tests are so revealing. When people face uncertain situations, their true priorities and values become visible in ways that are normally hidden during routine interactions. During normal times, someone might support you because it's easy, expected, or obviously beneficial. During uncertain times, supporting you might require genuine sacrifice, risk, or discomfort. The people who continue to support you during these periods are revealing their authentic priorities and values. This is why successful people intuitively create or recognize situations where loyalty gets tested. They understand that these situations reveal information about people's character that isn't visible during routine interactions. The most sophisticated leaders don't just use these tests to identify who's loyal. They use them to understand the different types and depths of loyalty among their team members, which helps them make better decisions about who to trust with different levels of responsibility and sensitive information. Now let's talk about how you can systematically apply these principles to build stronger, more reliable relationships in your personal and professional life. The goal isn't to become paranoid or manipulative, but to become more strategic and aware about who you choose to trust with the most important aspects of your life. Start by developing what successful people call loyalty awareness. This means paying attention to loyalty indicators during your daily interactions rather than waiting for major crises or opportunities to reveal people's true commitment levels. Notice how people talk about others when those people aren't present. Someone who speaks loyally about other people in their life is more likely to speak loyally about you when you're not present. Someone who quickly criticizes or betrays confidences about others is showing you how they'll eventually treat information about you. Pay attention to how people handle small commitments and responsibilities. Someone who's reliable with minor things is more likely to be reliable with major things. Someone who makes excuses or finds workarounds for small commitments is showing you how they'll handle larger commitments when pressure increases. Observe how people respond to your successes and failures in low-stakes situations. Someone who celebrates your small wins with genuine enthusiasm and supports you during minor setbacks is revealing how they'll likely respond during major victories and crises. Watch how people handle competing interests in their daily decisions. Someone who consistently chooses long-term relationship building over short-term personal advantage is showing you their decision-making priorities when larger conflicts arise. The key is to start building a mental database of how people operate during routine situations so you can make more informed decisions about who to trust when the stakes are higher. Successful entrepreneurs and leaders don't wait for major business decisions to test people's loyalty. They develop sensitivity to loyalty indicators during everyday interactions, which helps them identify trustworthy people long before they need to rely on them for crucial support. As you develop your ability to recognize loyalty, you'll start noticing more subtle indicators that can help you identify exceptionally loyal people even before they've had opportunities to prove themselves in obvious ways. Watch for people who defend your reputation and decisions when you're not present, even when doing so doesn't benefit them directly. This kind of unprompted advocacy reveals someone who has genuinely internalized your success as part of their own goals. Notice people who proactively look for ways to contribute to your success without being asked or rewarded. These individuals are operating from intrinsic motivation rather than external incentives, which means their support is likely to continue even when circumstances change. Pay attention to how people respond to criticism of you or your decisions. Loyal people don't just avoid criticizing you themselves. They find constructive ways to defend you when others are critical, and they bring concerns directly to you rather than discussing them with third parties. Observe who seeks to understand your perspective and reasoning, especially when your decisions might seem unclear or risky to others. Loyal people assume you have good reasons for your choices and work to understand those reasons rather than immediately questioning or criticizing. The most loyal people often become informal ambassadors for your vision and values, explaining and defending your approaches to others even when you're not asking them to do so. This level of advocacy indicates that they've not just committed to supporting you, but they've committed to helping others understand and support you as well. While these tests help you identify loyal people, it's equally important to understand that your own behavior significantly influences the loyalty you receive from others. The most successful people don't just test for loyalty. They create conditions that encourage and reward loyal behavior. Demonstrate loyalty to others before expecting loyalty in return. When you support people during their difficult times, celebrate their successes genuinely, and maintain confidentiality with their information, you're modeling the behavior you want to see and creating an environment where loyalty can develop naturally. Be consistent in your values and decisions so people can understand what they're being loyal to. If your priorities and approaches change constantly, even genuinely loyal people will struggle to maintain their commitment because they won't understand what they're supporting. Recognize and reward loyalty when you see it, but do so in ways that don't diminish the intrinsic motivation that makes loyalty valuable. The goal is to acknowledge loyalty without creating transactional expectations that undermine its authenticity. Communicate your long-term vision clearly so people can make informed decisions about whether they want to commit to that vision. Genuine loyalty requires understanding what someone is being loyal to, which means you need to be clear and honest about your goals and methods. The most effective leaders create what researchers call loyalty ecosystems. Environments where loyal behavior is naturally encouraged, recognized, and modeled. making it easy for genuinely loyal people to thrive, while making it uncomfortable for disloyal people to remain. Understanding and applying these loyalty principles doesn't just help you identify trustworthy people. It fundamentally changes how you approach building relationships, making decisions, and creating sustainable success. When you know who's genuinely loyal, you can delegate more effectively, take bigger risks, and move faster because you're not constantly worried about whether people will support you when challenges arise. This confidence allows you to focus more energy on strategic thinking and innovation rather than constantly managing relationships and protecting yourself from potential betrayal. Loyal relationships also create compound benefits over time. People who have proven their loyalty during small challenges become increasingly valuable as the stakes get higher, because you know you can trust them with more significant responsibilities and sensitive information. The most successful people often say that their ability to identify and cultivate loyal relationships was more important to their success than their technical skills, industry knowledge, or even their innovative ideas. Loyalty creates the foundation that makes everything else possible. But perhaps most importantly, understanding loyalty helps you become more loyal yourself. When you understand the psychology and behavior patterns that create genuine loyalty, you naturally start embodying those patterns in your own relationships, which attracts more loyal people to you and creates an upward spiral of trust and mutual support. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. These principles only work if you actually apply them consistently over time. Start tomorrow by paying attention to one loyalty indicator during your daily interactions. Notice how people handle small commitments, how they respond to your minor successes or setbacks, or how they treat confidential information you share with them. The successful people who built lasting wealth and influence didn't just learn these principles. They made them part of how they evaluate every relationship and opportunity. They developed loyalty awareness as an automatic habit that guided their decisions without requiring conscious effort. Remember, this isn't about becoming paranoid or suspicious. This is about becoming strategic and intentional about who you choose to trust with the most important aspects of your life. The difference between successful people and everyone else often comes down to who they surround themselves with and who they trust with their dreams.